is there? It's me, it's your boy. I'm back today to do another tier list, as you can see. I've got the remnants of the apple gum, which I'm taking out right now, which we're going to have a little bit of a chew on. We're going to do our tier list. I'm going to go through what it's going to be about. We probably see by the title anyway, but today it's going to be about the modules in 5e 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Now, a lot of my content at the moment has been about D&D, but that's because I love D&D, alright? So, I'm going to start off with 2 pieces and then we'll slip that third in a little bit later on, so let's get this going. Yes, yes, yes. I really like the apple one. Alright, I don't know how long this video is going to be. It's either going to be really quick or really long. The last tier list actually took a while. So without further ado, let's move over. Hello, we're on a different screen now. So as you can see, got another tier list. S through down to haven't played. Now, this feels like it's a tier list for a player, but I'm going to count haven't played as like don't really know enough about Pass Judgment. Okay. So this is where we're going to begin. We've got a whole bunch of modules here. Let's scroll down and take a look. We've got Curse of Strahd, Descent into Avernus, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Horde of the Dragon Queen, the starter set, which includes Lost Mine of Phandelver, Out of the Abyss, Princes of the Apocalypse, Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, Rise of Tiamat, Storm King's Thunder, the Yawning Portals of from the Yawning Portal, and finally to the right is Tomb of Annihilation, which is slightly off screen because I've cropped out all the ads from this site. So I'm already going to pop this third in. I need to have more gum, you know. And so let's begin. So the first thing I'm going to say is that there are a couple newer ones missing, including Shadow of the Dragon Queen and Shadowblisk. This is obviously an old tier list, but we're going to make do with it anyway. And then I might at the end make note of where I would put the others. Now, the Dragon Queen I would put in haven't played anyway because I've never played it. But Shadowblisk we'll come to at the end, so let's start. And we're going to begin with Curse of Strahd. So, Curse of Strahd is a module that I've played in a little bit. Never finished it as a player. But a module I've run twice. One much further than the other. So, Curse of Strahd is a module where you're sent to the dreaded domain of Barovia, which is in the Shadowfell. It's basically an evil place for evil people. Each domain of dreaders is led by a Dark Lord, and in this case it is Strahd who is the original Dark Lord, the one who created the domains of dread, not intentionally, but through his evil deeds. The Strahd, the vampire Strahd von Zarovich, it's comes from an old, I think it's 3rd edition module, and this is a sort of retelling a little bit and a new story. In this module, players are brought into Barovia through a number of different hooks they can choose, or the GM can make it up themselves. themselves. Either way, they find themselves in Barovia without any means of escape, and the whole premise of it is we want to leave Barovia. So Strahd is about the players trying to eventually defeat Strahd to escape. Now, on its own, it's an okay module, but the Strahd Reloaded version, which was made by, can't remember who it was made by, but it uses a whole bunch of stuff from different creators, is basically a modded version of it. Now, on its own, it is good enough, but the Reloaded is much better. And so for that reason, because of the potential it has, and its uniqueness, I'm going to put it in A. So, I have a lot of fun running this module because I love horror games, I love horror themed D&D, even though it's not a system that's designed specifically for it, and there are other better ones, looking at Call of Cthulhu, looking at Alien RPG, etc. Or Lesson is even better than that, but at the same time, it really gets the theme done right. And Strahd von Zarovich is just such a unique, memorable character. But I would put it at the bottom of A. And it's at the bottom because there's a lot of elements in there that I change. The recent version of it gets rid of a bunch of racial stereotypes, or cultural stereotypes, to do with the Vistani and their connection to the Romani people in real life, which I agree with. In my games, because of my own Celtic background, I prefer to make the Romani there, and that's the point, is that they're basically like pick and drag dropped Romani people into D&D, but I make them more of like sort of Druidic Celtic background, and so that's where they are. That's why I put it there, and the Reloaded adds a whole bunch of new details in there. That's a lot of fun. And that's going to bring us on to Descent into Avernus, Baldur's Gate. So, this is a hard one. I really like the premise of this module, which sees the players in the first few chapters investigating some crimes in Baldur's Gate before eventually finding themselves in the Nine Hells in the first layer and amidst the Blood War. And from there, they have a lot of choices to make about where they go. It's very open-ended, very much like Icewind Dale to a degree, and like Curse of Strahd, in that there are lots of different locations and it's up to you to decide how to approach the story. It's more of, here are the locations, here are some goals, what are you going to do? And I like that design. So, I think it's really, really interesting. That said, I'm a little let down with the Baldur's Gate stuff. There's not a lot to learn about Baldur's Gate in the module. It's very streamlined. It's almost as if it's just kind of in there so you can call it Baldur's Gate. I mean, the city that's disappeared is nothing to do with Baldur's Gate. It's Elturel, which if you played Baldur's Gate 3, you'll know is a big event. The city of Elturel has been dragged into the Nine Hells. The outcomes at the end are really cool. I don't want to spoil anything, but they're widely different. And it's one of the strongest modules in terms of like the potential endings and how things can go. So, because I feel like it really should have been two different modules, I'm going to be putting it at the top of B. And I know that might sound a little unfair, but I really think there should have been a Baldur's Gate module and then a Nine Hells module. And it feels like the Baldur's Gate stuff is in there just to call it Baldur's Gate, you know. And I can imagine it being very secular. A lot of people aren't going to want to play in the Nine Hells. I've tried to run this module recruit for it. It's been very difficult to find players. And, you know, I take that as a bit of a hint. So we're going to move on to Dragon Eyes next. This is a really divisive one for me. This is basically the only intrigue-based module there is. that I have experience with anyway. It's set in the City of Splendors, Waterdeep, of course, and it is a level 1 to 5 adventure that sees the players beginning with trying to find a missing person, and it leads them on a wild chase through the city, whereby they find themselves on the trail of an artifact. This module is really interesting because depending on the season that you set the game in, you'll have a different villain. Now, I probably should have done this as just like baseline, as like without any kind of mods, and I think I am going to do that from now on. I think Strahd still deserves its place up there because of its tone, its design. I really do enjoy running it and playing it even as it is, but it does need tweaks. But anyway, Dragonized on its own, it is a letdown. It has so much potential and so much has been slipped through the fingers. The Alexandrian remix makes the game infinitely better. Without it, it's really boring. Okay, that's an exaggeration. It seems boring in comparison. The Alexandrian remix adds the word heist back into Dragonized. Yeah, you heard that right. In the original module, there's no heist in the entire game, despite it being called Dragonized. There's no such thing. The Alexandrian remix adds in a bunch of heists. It gets rid of the seasonal enemies and makes every single one of them a player in the game, and so you find yourself in like a real intrigue plot where you've got like numerous different enemies and groups that are not only working against you but each other, and suddenly it makes it way more interesting. I would never ever go back to running it as base. I did that before, and I by the end abandoned doing that and added the Alexandrian remix stuff in. But from now on, I would do it from the beginning. That's not all that I have to say. Now, it is a very linear story. It doesn't go on for very long. And there's not really a lot of room to explore, and the book almost recognises that. It includes a gazette with information on Waterdeep, but it's very surface value. There's no details of shops, what they sell, NPCs, nothing. It's basically like reading a wiki, and I'm really let down by that, and that doesn't help when it adds on to the faction quests. So this is one of the only modules that includes different factions and quests that are more than just one, such as the Lord's Alliance, the Centurion, the Harbours, etc. Now, most of these quests can be summed up as: go to this location, make a single ability check. You either succeed in the mission or you fail, and that's that. I can't tell you how much I hate that, and it's all presented, not even with text, in a table. I despise that, honestly. I talked about it in another video, and that's the reason why, unfortunately, as much as I love the idea of this module, I'm going to put it in C. No, in C. It's going to be the top of C. But the fact that it doesn't include the basic elements that you need to run it, the fact that it feels like you're being dragged along and there's not a lot of like, go out and like explore the city, I put it in C. Now, I don't have much to say about this next one, Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I don't like dungeon crawls, not like big dungeon crawls. And this module is called Waterdeep, Dungeon of the Mad Mage. It takes players from level 5 all the way to level 20. As they get to the bottom, this is like the only 5e module that will take you to level 20. And as much as it can be fun to do, it wears itself out very quickly. And what doesn't help is that this is a follow-up module to Dragonized. The two adventures are disconnected, right? But despite their disconnect, they kind of are designed to run into each other. So you go from Dragonized, an intrigue and political game, and then run immediately into a dungeon crawl. And without saying any more, for that reason alone, I'm putting it in D. It has a lot of content, it's one of the thickest books, but that doesn't mean that it's good. The dungeon crawls have a lot of like old maps that have been reused. The maps in the book are boring, and it really lacks a lot of spirit, in my opinion. This is just my opinion, you know. I'm not going to get hired by Wizards of the Coast anytime soon, I tell you that. The next is Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So this is one of a couple of adventures in here that are adventure books that are like collections, is what I mean to say. So it's not just a single adventure, it's a number of like adventures that are small. So this is set in the Grey Hawk campaign setting, so different to the other modules so far. But the issue is that, despite that, it lacks, because basically it's a like pirate kind of ocean setting. It doesn't have any sailing or combat, like ship combat stuff, so it feels like very flat, but the adventures are kind of fun. I would say they're pretty decent, all things considered, and for that reason I'm going to put it in now. I'm debating now. So there is a personal element in this, and so I'm going to put it below C, because I like the fact that the reason I'm putting it below Waterdeep Dragonized is that Dragonized is a very unique adventure in that it's the only one with intrigue, really, to the level that it is, and politics. Okay, I don't have much to say about this. I'm going to put it right where I'm going to put it. Order of the Dragon Queen is one of the worst modules. It is a level 1 to 12 adventure. It is paper thin. It is the first adventure that came out alongside the player's handbook, which meant the module was being designed before the core rules had been created, which by extent meant that it was inconsistent with the rulebook. In addition, it's a module that, as you expand across the whole of the Sword Coast, but the issue, they don't give you any details about the cities. You stop off in Elturel, the only details are that you go and meet this character, have a drink, and then move on to Baldur's Gate. You go to Baldur's Gate, no details, you just go and find a convoy and begin a journey up to Waterdeep. There are some interesting like journey elements between there and Waterdeep, but after that it's a series of dungeon crawls. It is very uninspired and very cheap. I would say it is not even worth getting. If you're going to get this, get it with the Tyranny of Dragons book, which is both this and Rise of Tiamat put together, and Rise of Tiamat is marginally better. I would say, if you're going to run a D&D module, just ignore this one. Or if you're going to do it, homebrew it, because it absolutely sucks to go to a city as a player and be told, oh well, the module doesn't say there's anything to do here, so you're going to go here and move on. What's the point in journeying across the Sword Coast if all you get to see of it is like a paragraph of flavour text and then you move on? The next is the starter set, The Lost Mine of Phandelver. So that it recently got remastered into the Shattered Obelisk, and I think I'm just going to go out on a whim here and say modules very well. It's got an interesting narrative, some fun side quests that connect you to factions. I'm going to put it in A. I'm going to put it below Strahd just because I like Strahd more personally. But it is just a really, really solid D&D adventure that you can introduce new players to. Now, Out of the Abyss, I'm just going to say now, I'm going to put it in haven't played because I don't know too much about it. I have like passing knowledge about what it is. The players start as prisoners by drow. You find yourself in a drow city. I think it's Mesopotamia, or whatever the name is, but I can't say for certain. And I know there's a story about the Prince of the Abyss, Demogorgon, trying to get through to the material plane. But that's all I know, so I'm not comfortable saying much more on that. The same goes for Princes of the Apocalypse. I know the premise of it. It's basically like different elementals have come into the game, will come into the world, and there's like some trouble you've got to deal with. But other than that, I don't really know. The only other thing I know about it is that there's an NPC, a major NPC in Dragonized, who is a character in Princes of the Apocalypse. I think she's like a paladin that's been turned evil, and then she like comes back from that, and then she's in Dragonized. Okay, Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, is one of the best modules out there. It's going. I'm putting it in S. I'm putting it in S. I feel pretty justified in doing that. So Icewind Dale is predominantly a sandbox mode game that eventually comes into a bit of a more linear narrative. Now, is it perfect? By no means, no. But I think the sandbox nature of it, it's kind of frosty, very specific location, makes it a really fun game to play. You can use a lot of survival elements there to your whim. And the chapters are really nicely divided up. Now, I would change a lot of things about it, and I have, but because it's very simple, there's not too much to mess up. You can really, really homebrew it without feeling like you're destroying the module. Like there's like a really specific narrative to go down. So if you want to play this module as a player, don't listen to this like the next 30 seconds. So, for example, as a GM, Oral HQ is like on that island with the skull, but I personally changed it so that she now resides within Yithrin, and the final battle at the end is going to be with Oral, so it brings the whole module full cycle. And like you can change up a whole bunch of stuff. I like the idea of there being an initial quest that makes the players move between towns that they gather clues from. Now, with that, I would redo that, and I did redo that and made it so that they gradually pick up clues as they go along. They don't know that it's Sephic from the beginning. Instead, they learn that as they play. They've just been given this quest, and I also give them both the starter quests. I don't do it like one and then the other. I gave them both at the same time. Anyway, I think it deserves to be an S tier. So the next one is Rise Patina. Okay, it is better than Order the Dragon Queen, and it also takes you up much further in level, which a lot of other modules don't do. I don't really have too much to really say on it, other than that it's marginally better than Order the Dragon Queen, so I'm going to put it at the bottom of C. That's going to bring us to Storm King's Thunder, and unfortunately it's the same thing as the other three. I haven't got much experience with it. It's one of the modules that I really do want to look into, but you know, I have limited time, and it's not one of those that I've really kind of invested in. I know it's something to do with giants, and that's about it. Tales of the Yawning Portal. Okay. This is another one of the different series of adventures in one book, and this takes takes old adventures and like remakes them. So these are some classic adventures that have been brought into 5e. Because of that reason, I'm going to bring it into the lowest of B. Now, the reason I'm doing that is partially from nostalgia. I like the idea of revamping old modules, bringing them in. I don't think it's as compelling as like bigger stories and campaigns. I understand that they're kind of different, but bearing in mind that this is also personal taste, this list, I think it fits there. That's just my personal opinion on that. And then finally we've got Tomb of Annihilation. Okay. I am gonna bring this up and put it below Dragonized and say Tomb of Annihilation is a very it's a pretty brutal module. It's set in shot, which I think is interesting. It's the only one I think that's set in the Forgotten Realms that isn't like on the Sword Coast technically, because it's in shot, which is a jungle. But despite that, I don't know. I just don't feel like I'm very compelled to ever run or play it. You know. It feels like there are other modules that do something similar but kind of better. I'm trying to think of an example here. But, okay, well I can't really think of an example off the top of my head, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that it just doesn't feel compelling to me. Personally, I kind of like the kind of difficult nature of it, but at the same time, I don't think there's like a lot of roleplay potential in there, and maybe that's just personal opinion. It probably is. I'm sure there are people that would disagree with me on that. I do admit my knowledge on it is not perfect, but yeah, that's basically my take. So here we have it. In this tier we have Rime of the Frost Maiden. In A, Curse of Strahd and Lost Mine of Fendelva. In B, Descent into Avernus and Yawning Portal. In C, very very sadly, I would love this to be up here. If we're talking the Alexandrian remix with some added stuff, this module would be above would be above Icewind Dale and S. But as it stands, as the book as it's printed, I cannot justify it being there. So in C we have Dragonized, Tomb of Annihilation, Ghost of Saltmarsh, and Rise of Tiamat, and finally in D we have Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and finally Ward of the Dragon Queen. So that is my tier list. You may disagree with it, I'm sure you do. You're more than welcome to, but this is personal opinion, okay? This is just how I feel about it. I know you probably disagree with that, but that's why we're all individual people. If you do disagree, if you would put it in a different order, why don't you let me know in the comments? Tell me where I've gone wrong, why I'm stupid. So, with all that done and said and 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 done, that brings us to the end. So, I will see you all again very shortly, I'm sure, in another video. If you have any suggestions you want me to do, if anyone is watching, then let me know. And I will see you next time.